Lecture 9 of the Fairyland of Science. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. Recording by Ruth Golding. The Fairyland of Science by Arabella Buckley. Lecture 9, Bees in the Hive. I am going to ask you to visit with me today one of the most wonderful cities with no human beings in it, and yet it is densely populated, for such a city may contain from 20,000 to 60,000 inhabitants. In it you will find streets but no pavements, for the inhabitants walk along the walls of the houses, while in the houses you will see no windows, for each house just fits its owner, and the door is the only opening in it. Though made without hands, these houses are most evenly and regularly built, in tiers one above the other, and here and there a few royal palaces, larger and more spacious than the rest, catch the eye conspicuously as they stand out at the corners of the streets. Some of the ordinary houses are used to live in, while others serve as storehouses, where food is laid up in the summer to feed the inhabitants during the winter, when they are not allowed to go outside the walls. Not that the gates are ever shut, that is not necessary, for in this wonderful city each citizen follows the laws, going out when it is time to go out, coming home at proper hours, and staying at home when it is his or her duty. And in the winter, when it is very cold outside, the inhabitants, having no fires, keep themselves warm within the city by clustering together and never venturing out of doors. One single queen reigns over the whole of this numerous population, and you might perhaps fancy that, having so many subjects to work for her and wait upon her, she would do nothing but amuse herself. On the contrary, she too obeys the laws laid down for her guidance, and never, except on one or two state occasions, goes out of the city, but works as hard as the rest in performing her own royal duties. From sunrise to sunset, whenever the weather is fine, all is life, activity, and bustle in this busy city. Though the gates are so narrow that two inhabitants can only just pass each other on their way through them, yet thousands go in and out every hour of the day, some bringing in materials to build new houses, others food and provisions to store up for the winter. And while all appears confusion and disorder among this rapidly moving throng, yet in reality each has her own work to do, and perfect order reigns over the whole. Even if you did not already know from the title of the lecture what city this is that I am describing, you would no doubt guess that it is a beehive. For where in the whole world, except indeed upon an ant-hill, can we find so busy, so industrious, or so orderly a community as among the bees? More than 100 years ago, a blind naturalist, Francois Huber, set himself to study the habits of these wonderful insects, and with the help of his wife and an intelligent manservant, managed to learn most of their secrets. Before his time, all naturalists had failed in watching bees, because if they put them in hives with glass windows, the bees, not liking the light, closed up the windows with cement before they began to work. But Huber invented a hive which he could open and close at will, putting a glass hive inside it, and by this means he was able to surprise the bees at their work. Thanks to his studies, and to those of other naturalists who have followed in his steps, We now know almost as much about the home of bees as we do about our own. And if we follow out today the building of a bee city and the life of its inhabitants, I think you will acknowledge that they are a wonderful community, and that it is a great compliment to anyone to say that he or she is as busy as a bee. In order to begin at the beginning of the story, let us suppose that we go into a country garden one fine morning in May, when the sun is shining brightly overhead, and that we see hanging from the bough of an old apple tree a black object which looks very much like a large plum pudding. On approaching it, however, we see that it is a large cluster or swarm of bees clinging to each other by their legs, each bee with its 2 forelegs clinging to the 2 hinder legs of the one above it. In this way as many as 20,000 bees may be clinging together, and yet they hang so freely that a bee, even from quite the centre of the swarm, can disengage herself from her neighbours and pass through to the outside of the cluster whenever she wishes. If these bees were left to themselves, they would find a home after a time in a hollow tree, or under the roof of a house, or in some other cavity, and begin to build their honeycomb there. But as we do not wish to lose their honey, we will bring a hive, and holding it under the swarm, shake the bough gently, so that the bees fall into it and cling to the sides as we turn it over on a piece of clean linen on the stand where the hive is to be. And now let us suppose that we are able to watch what is going on in the hive. Before 5 minutes are over, the industrious little insects have begun to disperse and to make arrangements in their new home. A number, perhaps about 2,000, of large lumbering bees of a darker colour than the rest will, it is true, wander aimlessly about the hive and wait for the others to feed them and house them. But these are the drones or male bees, 3 figure 54, who never do any work except during 1 or 2 days in their whole lives. But the smaller working bees, 1 figure 54, begin to be busy at once. Some fly off in search of honey, others walk carefully all round the inside of the hive to see if there are any cracks in it, and if there are, they go off to the horse-chestnut trees, poplars, hollyhocks, or other plants which have sticky buds, and gather a kind of gum called propolis, with which they cement the cracks and make them airtight. Others again cluster round one bee, 2 figure 54, blacker than the rest, and having a longer body and shorter wings, for this is the queen bee, the mother of the hive, and she must be watched and tended. But the largest number begin to hang in a cluster from the roof, just as they did from the bough of the apple tree. What are they doing there? Watch for a little while, and you will soon see one bee come out from among its companions and settle on the top of the inside of the hive, turning herself round and round so as to push the other bees back and to make a space in which she can work. Then she will begin to pick at the under part of her body with her forelegs, and will bring a scale of wax from a curious sort of pocket under her abdomen. Holding this wax in her claws, she will bite it with her hard pointed upper jaws, which move to and fro sideways like a pair of pincers. Then, moistening it with her tongue into a kind of paste, she will draw it out like a ribbon and plaster it on the top of the hive. After that she will take another piece, for she has 8 of these little wax pockets, and she will go on till they are all exhausted. Then she will fly away out of the hive, leaving a small lump on the hive ceiling or on the bar stretched across it. Then her place will be taken by another bee,